Hey guys, Metal Jesus here. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I have been on a mission to try to get as many of my retro gaming consoles over to HDMI as possible. The reason being is that it's just really nice to be able to play your old games on a modern HD television. Plus, I often capture gameplay footage for YouTube, and doing it via HDMI is often the best way to go. However, I have a buddy of mine, his name's Ryan, and he runs Castlevania games. And he reached out to me, he's like, you know, dude, I have a challenge for you, because he knows that I have a really good old school CRT. And he's like, why don't I send you a really high-end video switcher, as well as some high-end cables? And, you know, he's challenging me, he's like, take a look at the best quality that you can get out of those consoles with an analog signal. He's like, I think you're gonna be pretty impressed with what you see. So, does it live up to the hype? Let's take a look. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the cables. Now, it's really important to think about what cables you have in your game room because, you know, if you use just mediocre or crappy cables or cheap cables that don't do a good job, well, you know, you're already gonna be behind the 8 ball here, and we're trying to get the best video quality possible. And most people agree that the best cables currently made are from HDRetrovision. I have a bunch of these already in my game collection. I've been using them for years. And Ryan also sent over some ones that I was missing. But basically what they do when they can is tap into the better video signal quality of those consoles, usually RGB, and then they just convert it to component. Now, they're not necessarily the cheapest that you can get, but you get what you pay for here. And so most people agree if you want the best video quality signal out, well, you're gonna need some HDRetrovision cables. And so thankfully I have them here for pretty much every system I would want. Now, one thing that is nice, and will save you a little bit of money if you have a large game room like mine, is that they do have adapters for the Genesis 2 cable. So if you end up buying the Genesis 2 cable, which you see here, they have a bunch of adapters for, like, say, the Sega Saturn, the Neo Geo. They also have one for the PlayStation 1, also the Turbo Duo, and Super Graphics, actually, if you happen to have one of those crazy consoles in your game room. So there are ways to get the most out of just one or two cables. Just all depends on, you know, how your game room is configured and how many consoles you have. And so for the most part, I want to use component out because that's the best quality that my CRT TV will take. And also it's the best quality that you can get out of these consoles without using something like an upscaler. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the video switcher. And as you see here, this thing is quite impressive when you first look at it. You're like, what the heck is going on here? It's actually much simpler than it appears to be, but let's go ahead and start with its name. It is called the gcompsw. Kind of a weird name. All you need to know is it's an automatic component/composite video switcher. And you'll notice on the top there, it's divided into two sections. So you have 8 inputs, and each of those inputs can be either component or composite. And then you have 2 outputs. Now the 2 outputs thing is kind of interesting and originally kind of confused me a little bit because I wasn't entirely sure why they did this. Well, it turns out that they just added a bunch of flexibility for those who want it. So for instance, you can send it to 2 televisions if you wish. You know, one of them could be a CRT and the second one could go to, like, say, an upscaler to an HD television. Or if you're like me and a YouTuber trying to capture gameplay footage, well, you just send that to your game capture device. Or if you're a Twitch streamer, well, yeah, then you can, you know, capture it and send it to, you know, the internet or your Twitch channel and also to your TV as you play. However, I need to stress though, this is not an upscaler. This is just a switcher. So, you know, if you're looking for 1080p video for your YouTube channel or your Twitch stream, this is not going to do that. This is designed for, you know, just going to an old school CRT like I have, but you could put, like, you know, something like a Retro Tank or a FrameMeister, you know, on the other end and do your upscaling as well. However, all the footage that you're seeing in this video is captured directly from that component output, and then I am upscaling it in Final Cut Pro to the final video that you're watching on YouTube. Does that make sense? Now, what's cool about this switch, and kind of what its big selling point is that it automatically switches between the different inputs as you turn them on or turn them off. So you don't have to mess around with buttons on the front or anything like that. And that's really nice when you have a game room like mine, where maybe you have friends or family over and you don't really necessarily want to teach them how to turn everything on or switch things back and forth. Literally, they would just hit the power on the console they want to play and it shows up on the TV. That's pretty cool. And they advertise that they're using an integrated video amplifier as well as audio and video input protection. So you can tell that they're really trying to focus on video quality with this device. And it's wild because there are no buttons or anything to mess with here. You just plug everything in and it just works. Now, it does get power from a micro USB cable, but what's cool is that they also include that in the box. They actually say it's a high quality universal power supply, but I guess they didn't want to necessarily leave it to chance that you might be using something, you know, cheap or whatever. So they make sure that you have a good one. And so how's the video quality? Well, it's hard for me to show it on a YouTube video because you're not there. Again, we're talking about an old school CRT, but I have to tell you, my games have never looked as good as this. They look absolutely astounding. I mean, it's like voodoo. It's funny because I haven't used this CRT in so long because I've basically been using modern HD televisions and upscalers, which are great, don't get me wrong, but man, when you go back and you plug those old, you know, retro consoles into the TV that they were designed for, it looks fantastic. You forget how good these games can look. So here you see me playing a game called Heavenly Guardian on the PlayStation 2. Now, this is game capture straight off of the component signal, you know, to my Elgato. I believe it's capturing 480i footage here. But then let's go ahead and switch to my camera. And, you know, this is where it gets kind of hard to show you because, you know, the camera is kind of picking up some of the artifacting because, you know, obviously it's a 4K, you know, camera trying to point it at a CRT, but in person, it's just so crispy. It's so vibrant. And then here's some Sega Genesis footage. And again, you know, over the last couple of years, I've been spending so much time trying to get these old consoles upscaled to HD, using analog products, which are fantastic, don't get me wrong. But then you go back and you sit in front of a good quality CRT with good cables, you know, watching and playing a game as it was meant to do, as it originally did. And you're just reminded, it's like, yeah, you know, this is the way it was meant to be. Again, don't get me wrong. You know, I love upscalers. Some of them are fantastic. There's definitely a place for it, but I'm very glad that in my game room, I do have a proper CRT there as well. And then next up, I hooked up the Wii, and this is actually where I ran into a little bit of a problem. It wasn't really necessarily a problem with the switcher or the cables, but initially I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting any video output to my CRT television. Well, that is because for years now, I've had my Wii set to 480p. That's an option that you have in the settings. And my TV didn't know what to do with that over a component. And so I actually had to hook my Wii up to an HD television to then go into the settings and switch it down to 480i. And then I was able to actually get the footage on my television. So just be aware that there's going to be some video issues. You know, again, it has nothing to do necessarily with this particular setup. It's just that when you're going back to those old TVs, you know, you have to remember, it's like, oh, that's right. You know, they may not support every video format. But the Wii looks great, and it was really fun to go back and play and capture a bunch of gameplay footage here. Actually, just so you know, that if you're interested in seeing more of this footage, kind of longer cuts of this footage, I'm gonna be uploading a bunch of that to my secondary channel, MJR Extras. I'll put a link down in the video description below if you wanna check that out. Now let's go ahead and talk about the price. So this thing is not cheap. Castlevania Games sells this for $240. Now that often does include free shipping. You can save a little bit of money if you go directly to the manufacturer. However, from what I can tell, they are going to charge you shipping, so the prices are fairly close. Now keep in mind that does not include the HDRetrovision cables, which are all sold separately. So this whole solution here gets expensive very quick, which had me thinking, I mean, who is this for, right? Well, it really reminds me of people who are big into music, you know, audiophiles, people who will spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on a turntable, on the cables, on the receiver, on the speakers. You know, money is no object, they just want the best. And at least in my game room with my television, this is a very good solution. Like I mentioned, you know, my games have never looked so good on that CRT. So as a matter of fact, it kind of has me wanting to rearrange my game room to make it, you know, easier for me to play both on my HD television and just kind of swing over and play on my CRT. So I'm actually thinking of rearranging the entire room, you know, just to take advantage of what this brings. But, you know, again, it's hard for me to recommend this to most people because I do think a lot of people are just going to be happy with a, you know, a retro tank, you know, or some upscaler. You know, there's some really good ones out there. So I don't know, it's just kind of expensive, but very cool. So anyways, guys, I'd love to know what you think down in the comments below. And also I'd love to know, you know, how many of you out there watching this video and you have game rooms set up or sections of your home set up to play games, how many of you still have a CRT? Because, you know, from what I can tell, they're getting kind of hard to find. And I still think they're pretty awesome. I'm really glad that I got mine back when I did, because I didn't pay a lot for it. But that was when you could find them on Craigslist all day long. So anyways, love to know what you guys think. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.